Limiting beliefs are often the silent barriers that prevent people from achieving the life they truly desire. They exist like invisible walls, shaping our behavior, decisions, and even the way we perceive ourselves. The first step toward ending limiting beliefs is recognizing them, because if you cannot see the chain, you cannot break it. Many people go through life unaware that their struggles are not simply due to a lack of opportunity, resources, or intelligence, but rather the subconscious narratives they repeat to themselves. These narratives are formed over time, influenced by family, culture, education, and personal experiences. They often hide in everyday thoughts, such as "I'm not good enough," "I don't deserve success," "people like me never win," or "it's too late for me." Recognizing these beliefs is about bringing the unconscious into the light of awareness so that you can examine whether they are fact or fiction. When you pause and analyze your own self-talk, you start to notice patterns. For instance, you may realize that every time you get an opportunity to step into leadership, you feel a small voice whispering that you are not qualified. That whisper is a limiting belief. If you pay attention, you might see that it originated from a past failure, a comment someone made years ago, or the fear of rejection. The belief persists not because it is true, but because it was repeated so often that it became part of your identity. Recognizing this is liberating, because it means you are not defined by the belief itself. You are only conditioned by it. Once you see it clearly, you realize you have the power to challenge and replace it. Another way to identify limiting beliefs is by observing the areas of life where you feel stuck. If you are constantly struggling in your career, relationships, health, or personal growth, ask yourself what story you are telling about that area. For example, someone who has never maintained healthy relationships might hold the belief that "I'm not lovable," or "people always leave me." Someone who struggles with money might believe "I'll always be poor," or "I don't deserve wealth." The results you experience are often a direct reflection of the beliefs you carry, because beliefs shape your decisions and decisions shape your destiny. By honestly examining the results in your life, you can trace them back to the underlying thoughts that created them. It's important to understand that limiting beliefs do not announce themselves boldly. They hide in rational sounding excuses. They show up as "I'm just being realistic," or "that's not for people like me." These phrases appear harmless, but when you look closer, you realize they are simply fear dressed as logic. For instance, if someone says, "I don't have the time to pursue my dream," the deeper belief might be, "I'm not capable of handling the responsibility of my dream." Recognizing the difference between genuine limitations and limiting beliefs is crucial. A genuine limitation is something external and factual, such as not being able to fly without a plane. A limiting belief is internal and false, such as "I can't start a business because I'm not smart enough." The moment you distinguish between the two, you reclaim your power. A powerful exercise to uncover these hidden beliefs is to write down your goals and then list the reasons you believe you cannot achieve them. Each reason will reveal a story you tell yourself. For instance, if your goal is to become financially free, but you write down "I can't because I don't come from a rich family," that reveals a belief rooted in background rather than potential. Once written on paper, these beliefs lose some of their grip because you see them for what they are: assumptions, not truths. Awareness creates separation, and separation creates choice. You are no longer fused with the belief. You can now question it. Recognition also requires paying attention to the emotions you experience. Every time you feel fear, doubt, shame, or unworthiness, there is usually a belief beneath the surface driving that emotion. For example, feeling anxious before speaking in public might point to a belief like "people will laugh at me if I make a mistake." Instead of running from the emotion, pause and trace it back to the thought fueling it. By doing this consistently, you begin to unmask the beliefs that have silently influenced your behavior for years. One of the challenges of recognizing limiting beliefs is that some of them masquerade as truths passed down from authority figures. If you grew up hearing money doesn't grow on trees or life is a struggle, you might have absorbed these as unquestionable facts, yet these are not universal truths. They are perspectives. Recognizing them as perspectives rather than facts allows you to decide whether to continue living by them or to create new empowering beliefs. It is also important to remember that the brain is wired to conserve energy and protect you from perceived danger. This means that limiting beliefs often arise from a survival instinct, not because they reflect reality. If your mind tells you not to take risks, it is simply trying to keep you safe, not necessarily trying to keep you happy. By recognizing that these beliefs are protective mechanisms, you can appreciate their intent while choosing not to be ruled by them. The process of recognition is not a one-time event. It is ongoing. Every new level of growth in life will bring new limiting beliefs to the surface. For instance, when you are starting your career, your limiting belief might be, "I'll never get hired." Later, when you achieve some success, the belief might shift to, "I don't deserve this promotion," or "I won't be able to maintain this level of performance." Each stage has its own hidden voices of doubt. Recognizing them at every stage ensures you keep moving forward rather than plateauing. Ultimately, recognizing limiting beliefs is an act of courage. It requires honesty to admit that much of what has been holding you back is not external circumstances, but internal scripts. It requires humility to accept that you have been carrying unhelpful stories for years. But it also brings empowerment, because once you recognize a belief as false, you no longer have to obey it. You begin to understand that you are not your beliefs. You are the thinker of those beliefs. And if you can think one thought, you can think another. If you can believe in limitation, you can just as easily believe in possibility. This first step is foundational because you cannot transform what you refuse to acknowledge. By recognizing your limiting beliefs, you shine a light into the dark corners of your mind, and in that light, falsehoods cannot survive. The awareness itself begins the process of change. From there, you can move forward with the work of replacing them with empowering beliefs that align with the life you truly want to live. Recognition is the key that unlocks the prison door, reminding you that the only thing keeping you inside was the illusion that the door was locked in the first place. The stories we tell ourselves shape the quality of our lives more than the circumstances we face. Every person carries an inner narrative, a collection of interpretations about who they are, what they can do, and what is possible for them. These stories are not always conscious. Often, they are created in moments of pain, rejection, or failure, and become embedded in the subconscious as unquestionable truth. The tragedy is not that difficult events happened in the past, but that people continue to carry the meaning they attach to those events, letting it define their present and future. To end limiting beliefs, you must rewrite the stories you tell yourself, because the narrative you live by becomes the reality you experience. For example, a child who struggled in school might have once heard a teacher say, "You're just not very smart." That sentence may have been spoken casually or even out of frustration, but the child could have interpreted it as proof of their inadequacy. Years later, even as an adult with opportunities to grow, they may still operate from the story, "I'm not intelligent enough to succeed." Notice that the event is long gone, but the story attached to it is alive and active. This is how many people unknowingly sabotage themselves. They keep rehearsing outdated scripts, never questioning whether those scripts were accurate to begin with. Rewriting your story begins with the realization that events are neutral until we assign them meaning. Two people can experience the same challenge and create completely different narratives. One person may lose a job and tell themselves, "I'm a failure, I'll never recover." Another person may lose the same kind of job and decide, "This is my chance to finally build the career I've always wanted." The external circumstance is identical, but the story changes the entire trajectory of their lives. Recognizing this truth gives you the power to reclaim authorship over your own narrative. The act of rewriting your story does not mean denying your past or pretending hardships never happened. It means choosing to reinterpret those hardships in a way that empowers rather than imprisons you. Take setbacks and ask, what did I learn from this? How did it make me stronger? What opportunities can arise because of it? For instance, someone who grew up in poverty might hold the story, "I'll always be poor." By rewriting, they can shift it to, "Because I experienced poverty, I understand the value of financial freedom, and I will create a life of abundance." The facts remain the same. They grew up without resources, but the meaning shifts from hopelessness to motivation. One practical way to begin rewriting is to identify recurring negative statements you say to yourself. Phrases like, "I always mess things up," "nobody takes me seriously," or "I don't deserve happiness" are not facts, they are stories. Once identified, challenge their validity. Ask yourself, is this always true? Can I think of at least one example where this wasn't the case? More often than not, you will find contradictions that prove the story is not universally accurate. Those contradictions are your evidence that the old story is fragile, and you have room to construct a new one. Visualization can be another powerful tool in this process. Imagine your life as if you were the main character in a book or film. If your story so far has been filled with self-doubt, setbacks, or struggle, you can still decide what the next chapter will look like. Every good story has moments of conflict, but those conflicts lead to transformation. Instead of saying, "My struggles define me," you can write, "My struggles were the training ground that prepared me for greatness." The protagonist in any story is not remembered for where they started, but for how they grew through challenges. You are no different. It is important to recognize that rewriting your story requires consistent practice because old narratives are deeply ingrained. They may have been repeated for decades, reinforced by external voices and internal self-talk. Simply declaring a new belief once is not enough. You must rehearse the new story until it becomes more familiar than the old one. Affirmations, journaling, meditation, and intentional reflection are tools to strengthen your new narrative. Every time the old story resurfaces, gently but firmly replace it with the new one until your mind learns to default to empowerment instead of limitation. Sometimes the stories we carry are inherited from our families or culture. You may have grown up in an environment where certain beliefs were considered normal, such as people from our background don't succeed, or dreams are a luxury we can't afford. These stories might have been repeated with good intentions as a way to protect you from disappointment, but they can still become cages. Rewriting your story means you give yourself permission to step outside of inherited narratives and author your own destiny. It means breaking cycles and proving that your path is not predetermined by your background, but defined by your choices. A critical step in rewriting your story is forgiveness. Many old narratives are fueled by resentment toward people who hurt us or circumstances that seemed unfair. Holding on to that pain gives energy to the limiting story. Forgiveness does not mean excusing harmful behavior, but it means deciding that the pain will no longer dictate your future. When you release the weight of blame, you free yourself to write a story that is based not on what others did to you, but on what you choose to do now. The stories you tell yourself also shape how you show up in the world. If your story is, "I'm not worthy," you may shrink, avoid opportunities, or settle for less than you deserve. If your story becomes, "I am capable and valuable," you approach opportunities with confidence and attract different results. The external world begins to mirror your internal story. This is why rewriting is not just an exercise in imagination. It has tangible effects on your career, relationships, health, and overall fulfillment. Another empowering approach is to shift your story from being the victim to being the hero. A victim story says, "Life happens to me." A hero story says, "Life happens for me, and I have the strength to rise above." Even when you cannot control events, you can control how you interpret them. That choice alone determines whether you live passively at the mercy of circumstance or actively create a life aligned with your highest potential. Rewriting your story is also about aligning your identity with the future you want, not the past you've lived. Instead of saying, "I'm someone who always struggles," you can say, "I am becoming someone who thrives." The key word here is becoming. It acknowledges growth as a process while still anchoring your identity in possibility. Over time, as you align your thoughts, actions, and decisions with this new identity, your external reality begins to shift in accordance. In the end, the most powerful truth you can embrace is that you are the author of your own story. Life will present challenges, losses, and detours, but you hold the pen. You decide whether those chapters define you as broken or as resilient. You decide whether setbacks become anchors or stepping stones. The story you choose will determine not just how you feel about your past, but also the opportunities you create for your future. By rewriting the stories you tell yourself, you transform from a passive character trapped by old narratives into a conscious creator shaping a new destiny. And when you do, limiting beliefs lose their power because they cannot survive in a story where you are the hero of your own life. Fear is one of the most common companions of limiting beliefs, and it often shows up disguised as caution, doubt, or procrastination. While fear is a natural human emotion meant to protect us from danger, it can easily grow into an obstacle that paralyzes us from taking meaningful action. To break free from the grip of limiting beliefs, it is essential to shift from fear to empowered action. This shift does not mean eliminating fear completely, because fear will always exist in some form. Rather, it means learning to act in spite of fear, to reinterpret fear as a signal of growth rather than a barrier to success, and to replace hesitation with bold, intentional steps toward the life you want. Fear thrives in the mind when we focus too much on what might go wrong. It creates exaggerated scenarios of failure, rejection, or embarrassment, and convinces us that these imagined outcomes are inevitable. For example, someone may dream of starting a business but constantly thinks, "What if I lose all my money? What if people laugh at me? What if I fail?" These what-ifs create paralysis, and the dream remains a dream. Shifting from fear to action requires a change in perspective. Instead of focusing on what could go wrong, ask yourself what could go right. What if you succeed? What if people support you? What if this decision changes your life for the better? By redirecting your attention to possibility, you weaken the hold of fear. Another important truth is that fear often appears strongest right before a breakthrough. Think about times in your life when you felt nervous about doing something new, speaking in front of an audience, applying for a job, or making a big decision. The fear built up in your imagination was often far greater than the reality. Once you took action, the fear diminished and you gained confidence. This pattern proves that fear is not a stop sign but a threshold. It signals that you are stepping into unfamiliar territory, which is precisely where growth occurs. Instead of interpreting fear as a reason to stop, you can reinterpret it as evidence that you are moving in the right direction. One powerful way to shift from fear to action is by breaking big goals into small, manageable steps. Fear grows when we look at the entire mountain we want to climb and feel overwhelmed by its size. But when we focus only on the next step, fear becomes manageable. For example, instead of saying, "I have to build a successful company," start with, "I will research my idea for 30 minutes today." Small actions build momentum, and momentum reduces fear. With each step, your confidence grows, and what once seemed impossible begins to feel achievable. Taking empowered action also requires reframing failure. Many people remain stuck because they associate failure with shame, finality, or proof of inadequacy. But failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process. Every successful person has a history of setbacks that taught them valuable lessons. Thomas Edison famously said he did not fail, but discovered thousands of ways that did not work. Rewriting your relationship with failure transforms fear into fuel. Instead of fearing mistakes, you can see them as data, feedback, and stepping stones toward your goal. This mindset liberates you from the need for perfection and allows you to act boldly, knowing that each action brings growth, no matter the outcome. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the decision to move forward despite it. When you act courageously, you prove to yourself that fear is not fatal. Each courageous act weakens fear's control over your mind. For instance, the first time you speak up in a meeting may terrify you, but doing it once shows you that you can survive it. The second time is easier, and eventually it becomes natural. Empowered action builds confidence, and confidence, in turn, reduces fear. This creates a positive cycle. Action breeds confidence, confidence reduces fear, and reduced fear encourages more action. It is also important to remember that fear often exaggerates the opinions of others. Many people hesitate to act because they worry about criticism or rejection. But in reality, people are often too focused on their own lives to scrutinize yours. Even if they do judge, their opinions do not determine your worth or your potential. When you shift your focus from pleasing others to living authentically, you free yourself from the prison of external validation. Fear loses its grip when you realize that your life is yours to live, not a performance for others to approve of. Visualization is another effective tool for overcoming fear. When you vividly imagine yourself taking action successfully, your brain begins to accept it as possible. Athletes use this technique before competitions, rehearsing their performance mentally until their body follows confidently in reality. You can do the same with your own goals. Visualize giving the speech, acing the interview, or launching the project. By rehearsing success in your mind, you weaken fear and strengthen belief in your capability. Supportive environments also play a role in shifting from fear to action. If you surround yourself with people who are constantly negative, fearful, or doubtful, their energy reinforces your own hesitation. But if you connect with people who encourage risk-taking, celebrate progress, and model courage, their influence will inspire you to act. Community is powerful because it reminds you that you are not alone in facing fear, and it provides accountability to keep moving forward. One of the most effective ways to move beyond fear is to reconnect with your why. Fear thrives when you focus only on the obstacles, but purpose thrives when you focus on the bigger picture. Ask yourself why your goal matters. Why is it important for you to change, grow, or pursue this dream? When your why is strong enough, it overshadows fear. For example, A parent may be terrified of starting a new career, but will push through fear if it means providing a better life for their children. A powerful purpose can make fear feel small in comparison to what is at stake. Ultimately, the shift from fear to empowered action is a practice, not a one-time event. Fear will always appear whenever you face something new, but each time you act in spite of it, you prove to yourself that you are stronger than your doubts. Over time, you build resilience and confidence that become unshakable. Fear may still whisper in the background, but it no longer dictates your decisions. Instead, you learn to treat it as a companion that shows up when you are growing, a reminder that you are stepping outside of your comfort zone. The truth is that your dreams will never wait for fear to disappear. If you wait to act until you feel completely ready, you will wait forever. Readiness is created through action, not before it. The courage to take imperfect, messy, and uncertain steps forward is what leads to transformation. And as you keep choosing empowered action over paralyzing fear, you gradually replace limiting beliefs with a new identity, one that sees challenges as opportunities, setbacks as lessons, and fear as a signal that you are on the path of growth. In this way, action becomes the antidote to fear, and your life expands in direct proportion to the steps you are willing to take. Human beings are deeply influenced by the environments they live in and the people they surround themselves with. The mind absorbs thoughts, attitudes, and energy much like a sponge absorbs water, and over time, those influences shape beliefs, habits, and ultimately destiny. If you are surrounded by constant negativity, fear, or doubt, you are far more likely to adopt the same limiting beliefs. On the other hand, if you place yourself among people who inspire you, push you to grow, and model what is possible, you begin to expand your own vision of life. This is why surrounding yourself with possibility thinkers is one of the most powerful ways to break free from limiting beliefs. When you see others who refuse to be confined by fear and limitation, you begin to believe that you can do the same. Possibility thinkers are individuals who look at challenges and see opportunities. Where most people say it can't be done, they ask, how can it be done? Their mindset is not constrained by what has been, but energized by what could be. By spending time with such people, you begin to adopt their perspective. You learn to question the assumptions you once held as absolute. For example, if you grew up believing that success was only reserved for a select few, being around people who continually create success through persistence and creativity begins to dismantle that belief. Their lives become living proof that the old narrative you carried is not the only truth. The company you keep often acts as a mirror that reflects back what you believe about yourself. If you surround yourself with people who are constantly complaining, doubting, or criticizing, you internalize that as normal. You may even start doubting your ambitions or scaling down your goals to fit the standards of the group. On the other hand, when you connect with people who celebrate growth, encourage risk-taking, and speak possibility into your life, you begin to mirror those qualities. You see higher standards as achievable and start raising your own expectations. The human brain is wired to adapt to the environment, which means you will either adapt downward to mediocrity or upward to greatness, depending on the influence around you. One of the key benefits of surrounding yourself with possibility thinkers is that they challenge your excuses. When you tell yourself, "I can't do this because I don't have enough time," a possibility thinker will ask, "How can you make the time?" When you say, "I don't have the resources," they might respond, "Who can you connect with to find them?" Their way of thinking shifts the focus from limitation to solution. Over time, you learn to adopt this same problem-solving mindset, and suddenly obstacles that once felt immovable become stepping stones toward growth. It is also worth noting that possibility thinkers come in different forms. They may be mentors, friends, colleagues, or even authors and speakers whose work you consume regularly. In today's world, access to possibility thinkers is not limited by geography. Through books, podcasts, videos, and online communities, you can connect with people who expand your vision no matter where you are. The key is to be intentional about what you allow into your mental space. If your daily consumption is filled with negativity, fear, driven news, or pessimistic voices, your mind will reflect that. If instead you consistently expose yourself to voices of encouragement, resilience, and creativity, your mindset will align accordingly. Another powerful aspect of surrounding yourself with possibility thinkers is accountability. It is easy to fall back into old patterns when no one is challenging you, but when you are part of a group or community that expects growth, you naturally push yourself further. For example, joining a mastermind group, a study circle, or even a fitness community can provide the structure and encouragement you need to keep going. The presence of others who are striving for excellence pushes you to maintain your commitment, even when fear or doubt creeps in. This kind of accountability transforms limiting beliefs into temporary thoughts rather than permanent barriers. At the same time, surrounding yourself with possibility thinkers does not mean cutting everyone else out of your life. It means setting healthy boundaries with people who consistently discourage or belittle you. Some people will not understand your goals, and that is fine, but you do not need to absorb their doubts as your own. Instead, limit the time and emotional energy you invest in such relationships, and intentionally invest more into those that lift you up. Protecting your mental environment is as crucial as protecting your physical health, because what you consistently hear eventually becomes what you believe. It is also important to note that possibility thinkers do not live in denial of challenges. They do not ignore reality or pretend problems don't exist. Instead, they acknowledge obstacles but refuse to let them define the outcome. Their belief is not that life will always be easy, but that solutions are always available and that growth is always possible. This balanced optimism is contagious. When you witness people overcoming adversity with creativity and resilience, you realize that you too can rise above your challenges. Their example becomes evidence that limitations can be transcended. Sometimes the most powerful possibility thinkers you can surround yourself with are those who are already living the kind of life you aspire to. This could mean finding mentors who have achieved success in your field, role models who have overcome similar struggles, or peers who are slightly ahead of you in their journey. Being around such individuals makes the vision of your own success feel more attainable. It dismantles the belief that people like me can't do this, and replaces it with the realization that if they can, I can too. Surrounding yourself with possibility thinkers also changes the language you use. Language is a reflection of belief, and when you hear people around you speaking words of empowerment, creativity, and determination, your own vocabulary begins to shift. Instead of saying, "I can't," you begin to say, "I'll find a way." Instead of saying, "This is too hard," you start saying, "This is a challenge I can learn from." Over time, this shift in language rewires your brain, reinforcing new, empowering beliefs and diminishing the old limiting ones. The journey of ending limiting beliefs is not something you do in isolation. It requires support, encouragement, and the reflection of possibility from others. By surrounding yourself with people who believe in growth, you create an ecosystem that nurtures your own transformation. Even on days when your self-belief wavers, their belief in you can carry you forward until your confidence catches up. This is the power of community and shared vision. Ultimately, your environment shapes your destiny more than you may realize. If you want to break free from the prison of limiting beliefs, you must choose your associations wisely. Seek out mentors who inspire you, friends who encourage you, communities that challenge you, and voices that remind you of your potential. Fill your mental space with stories of perseverance, success, and creativity. By doing so, you ensure that your thoughts are continually pulled upward rather than dragged downward. And as your environment changes, your mindset shifts, your actions transform, and your life expands to reflect the possibilities you once thought were beyond your reach. Life is not defined by the absence of challenges, but by how we respond to them. Every person encounters setbacks, moments when things do not go as planned, when doors close unexpectedly, or when effort does not immediately lead to success. These setbacks often tempt us to reinforce limiting beliefs, whispering that we are not capable, not worthy, or not meant for something greater. Yet setbacks are not meant to be permanent walls. They are signals for growth, opportunities to learn, and fuel to push forward with greater strength. The ability to turn setbacks into fuel for growth is what separates those who remain stuck from those who rise above limitations and create lives of possibility. The first step to transforming setbacks is shifting perspective. Most people see setbacks as proof of failure, but in reality, they are feedback. When something does not work, it teaches you something valuable about your strategy, your mindset, or your level of preparation. For example, if you launch a project that does not succeed, instead of saying, "I failed, I'm not good enough," you can ask, "What did this experience teach me? What can I adjust? What strengths did I discover in the process?" With this perspective, every setback becomes part of the curriculum of success. Each one is a lesson that sharpens your skills and prepares you for the next level. Consider the stories of highly successful people, entrepreneurs, inventors, artists, athletes. Almost without exception, they encountered multiple failures before achieving breakthroughs. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Thomas Edison faced thousands of unsuccessful attempts before creating a working light bulb. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job. If any of them had allowed setbacks to define them, their lives and the world would have been very different. What allowed them to triumph was their decision to interpret setbacks not as permanent defeats, but as stepping stones toward greater achievement. Turning setbacks into fuel requires resilience, which is the ability to bounce back quickly after difficulty. Resilience does not mean ignoring pain or pretending that disappointments do not hurt. It means acknowledging the pain while refusing to let it paralyze you. It means giving yourself permission to grieve, but also committing to rise again with new wisdom. Each time you get up after being knocked down, you strengthen the muscle of resilience, and that muscle becomes one of the greatest tools in dismantling limiting beliefs. The more resilient you become, the less power fear and doubt have over you. Another essential part of using setbacks as fuel is learning to separate your identity from the outcome. Too often, people equate failure in a task with failure as a person. They say, "I failed, therefore I am a failure." But this is a false belief. Failure is an event, not an identity. You may have failed at something, but you are not failure itself. Recognizing this distinction frees you from internalizing setbacks as permanent labels. Instead, you can treat them as temporary moments that provide clarity and direction. When you understand that your worth is not tied to any single outcome, you give yourself permission to keep trying until you succeed. Setbacks also serve as moments of redirection. Sometimes what feels like a closed door is actually life guiding you toward a better path. Many people look back on disappointments and realize that what they thought was a devastating failure turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to them. Losing a job may push you to pursue a career that truly fulfills you. A failed relationship may lead you to grow in ways that prepare you for a healthier connection later. By trusting that setbacks are not the end but part of the journey, you begin to see them as fuel for discovering new opportunities rather than evidence of limitation. It is also helpful to cultivate gratitude in the midst of setbacks. Gratitude does not mean you are thankful for the pain itself, but that you are thankful for the strength, clarity, and opportunities that can arise because of it. When you practice gratitude, you shift your focus from what you lost to what you can gain. For example, instead of dwelling on a failed attempt, you can be grateful for the skills you developed, the people you met, or the courage you showed. Gratitude reframes setbacks as gifts in disguise, and this reframing provides the energy to keep moving forward. Support systems are vital when turning setbacks into fuel. It is easy to become discouraged when you face challenges alone, but having mentors, friends, or communities that encourage you can help you see beyond the immediate disappointment. They remind you of your strengths, help you see solutions you may have overlooked, and hold you accountable to keep going. Sometimes simply hearing someone say, "I believe in you," can be the spark that reignites your determination. Surrounding yourself with such voices ensures that setbacks do not push you deeper into limiting beliefs, but instead push you closer to possibility. One of the most powerful practices for transforming setbacks is reflection. When something does not go as planned, take time to analyze it constructively. Ask yourself, what worked well, what did not work, what could I do differently next time? Reflection transforms setbacks into data, and data empowers growth. Without reflection, you risk repeating the same mistakes. With reflection, every setback becomes a training ground, equipping you with sharper skills and deeper wisdom for future challenges. Another way to use setbacks as fuel is to anchor yourself in your long-term vision. When you focus only on the immediate disappointment, it is easy to lose hope. But when you zoom out and remember your ultimate goals, you see setbacks as temporary detours rather than final destinations. Think of them as bumps on the road rather than roadblocks. If your vision is strong enough, no setback will be powerful enough to stop you. Your vision gives you the energy to keep pressing forward, even when the journey feels hard. Over time, as you consistently turn setbacks into fuel, you develop a new identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who is defined by failure, and begin to see yourself as someone who always finds a way to rise. This shift in identity dismantles limiting beliefs at their core. Instead of believing, "I can't handle challenges," you begin to believe, "I am someone who grows stronger through challenges." That belief alone can transform your entire life because it equips you to face the future with courage rather than fear. Ultimately, setbacks are inevitable, but suffering from them endlessly is optional. The difference lies in how you interpret them. If you see them as permanent evidence of inadequacy, they will reinforce your limiting beliefs and keep you small. But if you see them as temporary teachers, they will expand your perspective, sharpen your resilience, and fuel your growth. Every challenge carries within it the seeds of transformation, but you must choose to water those seeds with perseverance, reflection, and gratitude. When you embrace setbacks as fuel, you no longer fear them. You welcome them as part of the process, knowing that each one moves you closer to becoming the person you are meant to be. You understand that the road to success is not straight but filled with twists, turns, and obstacles. And instead of letting those obstacles stop you, you use them to build strength, courage, and character. In this way, setbacks cease to be barriers and instead become the very force that propels you beyond your limiting beliefs into a life of growth, resilience, and limitless possibility. An unshakable mindset of abundance is the antidote to the limiting beliefs that hold so many people back from living their fullest potential. Most limiting beliefs are rooted in scarcity thinking. The idea that there is not enough opportunity, not enough love, not enough money, or not enough talent to go around. Scarcity convinces people that they must settle, compromise, and shrink their dreams to fit within narrow boundaries. Abundance, on the other hand, is the belief that possibilities are limitless, resources can be created, and growth is always available. Building an unshakable mindset of abundance means training yourself to see beyond perceived limitations, to focus on what you have rather than what you lack, and to cultivate faith in the potential that exists within and around you. One of the most important shifts in cultivating abundance is learning to focus on possibility instead of limitation. Scarcity thinking constantly asks, what if it doesn't work? What if I fail? What if there isn't enough? Abundance thinking reframes those questions into, what if it does work? What if I succeed? What if there is more than enough for me and others? This small shift in perspective creates a profound difference in how you approach life. When you operate from abundance, you take risks, embrace opportunities, and allow yourself to dream bigger because you trust that the universe is not limited in what it can provide. Abundance also begins with gratitude. Scarcity focuses on what is missing, while abundance is anchored in appreciation for what already exists. By practicing gratitude daily, you train your mind to notice the blessings around you instead of dwelling on lack. This habit rewires your brain, making you more receptive to opportunities. For instance, someone who constantly complains about not having enough money will often overlook creative ways to generate income. But someone who is grateful for their skills, connections, and current resources will more easily recognize paths to expand them. Gratitude magnifies what you already have and lays the foundation for more to flow into your life. Building an unshakable mindset of abundance also requires releasing comparison. Scarcity thrives on comparison because it convinces you that if someone else wins, you must lose. Abundance, however, recognizes that another person's success does not diminish your own potential. There is no shortage of achievement or fulfillment in the world. There is space for everyone to thrive. When you celebrate the success of others, you affirm that success is possible for you too. This attitude not only frees you from jealousy, but also attracts supportive relationships and opportunities, because people are drawn to those who radiate positivity instead of resentment. Another key element of an abundant mindset is generosity. Scarcity clings tightly to resources out of fear of running out. Abundance gives freely, knowing that what you give multiplies and returns in unexpected ways. This does not mean being careless with your resources, but choosing to live with open hands instead of clenched fists. Generosity creates a cycle of flow. When you give your time, knowledge, or kindness, you expand the opportunities available to others, and in turn, opportunities expand for you. Acts of generosity also reinforce the belief that there is always more than enough to share, which strengthens your mindset of abundance. An abundant mind also views challenges differently. Instead of seeing obstacles as proof that life is unfair or stacked against you, abundance interprets them as opportunities to grow stronger and wiser. Every difficulty carries within it the seeds of expansion. If you face a financial setback, abundance tells you this is a chance to learn new skills or explore new streams of income. If you experience rejection, abundance reminds you that rejection is redirection towards something better aligned with your potential. By interpreting challenges as opportunities, you transform experiences that would otherwise reinforce limiting beliefs into fuel that strengthens your belief in unlimited possibility. To build an unshakable mindset of abundance, it is crucial to become intentional about your language and self-talk. Words shape reality, and the way you describe your situation determines how you feel about it. Phrases like "I can't afford this," "there's never enough," or "things never work out for me" reinforce scarcity, replacing them with empowering language like "I'm finding ways to create the resources I need," "There's always more opportunity ahead," or "This is a step towards something greater," rewires your subconscious to align with abundance. Over time, consistent positive language creates a new internal narrative that supports growth and possibility. Visualization is another powerful tool for developing abundance. When you imagine yourself thriving, succeeding, and enjoying the life you desire, you train your brain to expect those outcomes. The subconscious mind does not distinguish between vividly imagined experiences and reality. It accepts both as truth. By regularly visualizing abundance, you program yourself to act in alignment with it. This practice not only builds confidence, but also opens your mind to solutions and opportunities that align with your vision. Building an unshakable mindset of abundance also means developing faith. Faith in yourself, faith in the process, and faith in the idea that good things are possible for you. Limiting beliefs often erode faith by convincing you that the future will be a repetition of the past. But abundance trusts that the future can be different, that each new day holds potential, and that setbacks are not the final story. This kind of faith allows you to keep moving forward even when evidence has not yet appeared. It gives you the strength to take bold action because you trust that life will rise to meet you. Your environment plays a role as well. Surrounding yourself with people who think abundantly reinforces your own mindset. If you are constantly around scarcity thinkers who complain about lack, it will be difficult to maintain faith in abundance. But if you immerse yourself in communities that celebrate growth, share resources, and encourage dreams, their perspective becomes contagious. The conversations you have, the books you read, and the media you consume all feed your mindset, so choose those inputs carefully. The ultimate test of an unshakable mindset of abundance is consistency. It is easy to think abundantly when everything is going well, but true abundance is revealed when circumstances are difficult. It is in moments of uncertainty that scarcity voices grow loudest, telling you to quit, shrink, or give up. But an unshakable mindset refuses to retreat. It chooses to focus on what is possible, to practice gratitude, to give generously, and to keep moving forward even when fear tempts you to stop. Each time you do this, you strengthen the foundation of abundance until it becomes your natural way of thinking. When you live with an abundant mindset, your actions naturally align with greater possibility. You take more risks, pursue bigger goals, and connect more authentically with others. Opportunities that once seemed invisible begin to reveal themselves because your mind is trained to look for them. Scarcity may still whisper in the background, but it no longer controls your decisions. Instead, your unshakable belief in abundance propels you forward, dismantling every limiting belief that once held you back. In the end, abundance is not about material wealth alone. It is about believing that life is overflowing with possibilities, that you are capable of growth beyond measure, and that your potential is not capped by your past or by external circumstances. When you embrace this truth, you stop settling for a life defined by limitation and step into a life defined by expansion. An unshakable mindset of abundance empowers you to dream boldly, act courageously, and live fully, no matter what challenges come your way. It is the mindset that transforms not only your beliefs, but also your destiny.